Hey, what's up, everybody? Video coming at you with another video. All right, so um, now we know what the play-in tournament situation looks like in terms of the New Orleans Pelicans and the Los Angeles Clippers. They're going to be going at it for an opportunity to play for the eighth spot. And listen, that is going to be a dog fight, an absolute and utter dog fight. I'm thinking Bi versus George. I'm thinking Herb Jones versus Terrence Mann. I'm thinking, um, is Reggie Jackson going to be able to step up and play better after getting embarrassed against the Timberwolves and Patrick Beverly snatching his lunch from him constantly? Are we going to see a better defensive performance from the Clippers than we saw against the Timberwolves? Marcus Morris, is he going to be hitting some big shots and play better? Clippers find themselves in this situation, and today at the beginning of the day, I said if I think it would be better for the Clippers if they ran into the Pelicans and the Spurs, because I just felt like the Spurs matched up kind of interestingly against the Clippers. But after watching this game and the way they just dominated the Spurs and withstood every run, and the way Herb Jones just basically dominated the floor defensively, the way Alvarado was able to stretch the floor and play defensively as well, the way Valanciunas controlled the paint, CJ McCollum just scored at will. The Pelicans looked like a legitimate team tonight. Zion wasn't even missed, in my opinion. They were rather impressive. I gotta give it Willie Green and that team credit. You saw good defensive sequences out of my young fella Murphy. Najee Marshall came in, played well off the bench. I was just totally impressed with that Pelican squad. And I didn't even see Larry Nance Jr. out there. I don't know if he's healthy or what, but that's another piece that they have to throw at people. Jackson Hayes played well. The Clippers going to have their hands full, man. Because the thing that we saw with the Clippers against the Timberwolves is that they did not fare well against Vandy and McDaniels and obviously Patrick Beverly. Those type of players just put all kinds of fits on the Clippers. Well, guess what? The Pelicans have those exact same types of players. Those exact same type of players. We're talking Herb Jones, Alvarado, Brandon Ingram. As I said, Murphy. These guys all play D at a very, very high level. And that's the thing about these Pelicans is I'm looking at them, I'm like, they really do have specialist defensive players. A guy like Herb Jones is going to just be a terror for the rest of his career. No matter what team he's on, he's going to do exactly what we saw him do tonight. He plays D. He's aggressive offensively. He's not afraid to shoot, even though he's not overly talented shooting the ball. He can hit that three. And he complements it to the floor well. I think it was Doris Burke who pointed out how relentless he was fighting through tough screens. Valanciunas was laying the wood, and he wasn't even budging. He just continued to put his body on the line to do all the dirty work. I couldn't have been more impressed. Could not have been more impressed with Herb Jones tonight. That dude is going to be a superstar on the defensive side of the ball. I kid you not. Yet another great defensive player in this league. And for him to show up in a winner-takes-all type of situation in the way that he showed up, just basically spearheading them, the team defensively. I'll tell you, man, they are going to probably be favored to win that game if they play like this. Especially the way the Clippers played. They just look a little old to me. I'm not going to lie to you. The Clippers should really consider some of the issues they had defensively against the Timberwolves. Got a lot of blow-bys. I listened to this particular Clipper fan. I wish I knew his name, but I was listening to him today talk about how he didn't really feel that Ty Lue's coaching was good in that game. I have to agree. You gotta, there's something to be said for understanding the difference between a winners takes all situation and the adjustments that need to be made in a singular game, and the adjustments you can get away with making in multiple games. And I think, as that fan pointed out, Ty Lue tend to kind of handle the rotations in yesterday's game as if he was setting up for another game to play against this team. And that type of strategy doesn't work in that type of situation. When you're going up against a team like the Pelicans, it's play the hot hand, play rotations, and make sense. The good thing about having gone up against the Timberwolves is the fact that they do have similar types of players, a similar type of play styles, similar ways of attacking you, as this team that they just saw. The Pelicans are going to have similar stuff out there. So it's almost like getting another try at it. You know what I mean? It's just like you're facing a similar team, and the game plan that you gave that team did not work. Let's see if you can try a different way of approaching it. But I just think Paul George is going to have it's going to be a really interesting game for Paul George with those long, lengthy defenders. I just do not like this matchup right now. Having just gotten a good glimpse of both teams, I don't like this game for the Clippers. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't like this game for the Clippers. I don't. The only thing that makes me feel good about this game for the Clippers is the fact that it's at the Grove, that it's here in LA. I think that works in their favor. But the way that they lost that last game, the way that Patrick Beverley was dancing around, they're going to have to show some real mental fortitude to bounce back from that, not be dejected from that, and come in and beat a highly motivated and highly active Pelican team. Because they're everywhere, man. I'm telling you. That Herb Jones, he's just relentless. Absolutely relentless. Blocking shots, stealing the ball. He's number one in steals for rookies this year. And I'm just like, the length that they provide. I mean, he's an X factor at the beginning of the season that you didn't even think twice. You knew they drafted this kid. You knew what his strengths and weaknesses were, but you didn't think that you would actually have to deal with him in this type of situation if you're a playoff team like the Clippers. It's like it's bad enough they do have B.I. It's bad enough they do have, Valanciunas, who just played so damn strong tonight. San Antonio is going to have to really consider what to do with their center situation, because even though Jakob Poeltl is extremely talented, we saw exactly what went wrong for them tonight. The Spurs are a positionless basketball team with a bunch of players who can all handle the basketball in transition. When you have Jakob Poeltl down there with those four wingy players that can run around, it becomes a situation where if he gets the ball, the play in transition just falls apart. Now he has to pick the ball up and look for someone to move around. You saw situations where their fast breaks just did not stay as smooth as they should have been because that fifth guy doesn't fit the other four. And that's what I saw out there tonight. It was just what hurt San Antonio, in my opinion, was the style of play. The Pelicans can run better stuff in the fast break and in the half court than the Spurs, and that's what I was able to see. They just had more complementary pieces to the style that they wanted to use, if that makes any sense. And you could just see it. You could just see it that the Pelicans were more comfortable running their stuff. They were more comfortable on that floor. Obviously, the home court advantage played its part as well. So, for me, looking at that, I'm wondering if the Pelicans are going to be able to play that well on the road. Will some of those shots that they hit at home work for them when that Crow crowd is going crazy for the Clippers? Because that's going to be the story. I look at vets like, as I said, Marcus Morris. I'm looking at Luke Kennard to see if he's going to be available for that game. He's going to be important hitting shots. The Pelicans shot the ball very well tonight. That was something to pay attention to. But I will say this. There was a long stretch of the game in the fourth quarter where both the Spurs and the Pelicans had no success hitting shots. And if the Pelicans go on a stretch like that against the Clippers, it's night. Then you can't have those scoring droughts against a Paul George, Marcus Morris, a team like you can't do that against Batum and those vets. Coffee, the way he's been lighting it up lately. That can be a problem for the Pelicans. They must keep CJ and BI on the floor. They have to have somebody on the floor in that vein at all times. Because if they go on those scoring droughts, they can't beat the Clippers at home. On the road, rather. That's not happening. So it's gonna be a dogfight, man. It don't really matter who. I hate to say this, but it don't matter who wins this game because they're gonna end up getting smacked around by the Suns in the first round anyway. But you do get bragging rights at the end of the day to say, you know what, I made the playoffs. So that's what it's all about. I personally think the Clippers were exposed last night. I do not nearly have as much faith in the Clippers as I did going into that game as I, at this point, I don't have as much because they just looked flat-footed to me last night. They looked like they had their feet stuck in the sand. It looked like some of the guys that are on their team who've been there for a while are a little tired or banged up from the regular season. I thought Ty Lue leaned on the wrong people last night. Stuff like that is just, going up against a Pelicans team with this type of firepower, when you know CJ can go off for 40, when you know BI is going to go off for the type of numbers he did tonight, Val's going to play the way that he did. Just to circle back, Jakob Poeltl, he played some good defense down the stretch, against Valanciunas. I felt like he was able to get some stops down there in some key areas. But during the meat and potatoes of the game, Valanciunas was just blowing straight through him. I mean, it was just like, it was almost like he wasn't there, man. It was really bad. That type of thing right there is the same problem that Zubac has. It's the same issue Zubac was having last night that I saw. He was just, he's a big guy. He and Jakob Poeltl are like in the sense that they're both very big guys, but they have a lot of give to them. You know what I mean? You push up against them and they're moving. And you saw Valanciunas blow straight through Poeltl tonight, repeatedly. And I suspect you're going to see the exact same thing against Zubac. And I think that's going to bode very, very, very badly for the Los Angeles Clippers. He's so strong. He plays both sides of the floor. He can stretch the floor. And, it's just one of those situations where he can take a seat. They have plenty of backups for him. There's plenty of rest for that guy. So, I'm going to tell you the truth, man. If Paul George doesn't take over this game, or they don't have a big game out of a Terrence Mann or a Coffee that can just basically outshine anything that the Pelicans are doing, I think the Pelicans are going to win this game and get that 8th spot. I just look at the Clippers and I look at momentum. And the way the Clippers played that last game against a similar basketball team, they did not fare well against feisty defensive players. Long, wingy guys that can really, really run the floor. That's exactly what the Pelicans have. The same thing Minnesota got. And I think the Pelicans are a bit more condensed in it. And then they focus in on it more because there's no Karl Anthony Towns to take the energy off of it. Those same players are the ones attacking you. Those same ones that are getting the steals are the ones also dunking on your head and hitting the threes. I don't know. I just feel like the Clippers ran into a tough situation. They're a talented team, but they're missing Kawhi Leonard. And, one could say obviously the same thing about the Pelicans missing Zion, but, anybody who saw the beginning of the ESPN coverage knows that Zion is feeling good enough to get out there and play. Now, I don't know what's holding the Pelicans back from playing him. I don't really know what the diagnosis is on whatever his problem, his health is. But it's very obvious to me that he wants to play. And in a game like this, putting him out there would basically beat the Clippers. He's gonna get, even if he plays 15 minutes, his energy is gonna be just enough to overcome. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to win the game because obviously I'm leaning toward them winning it anyway. But again, he's good enough to play. He's going to leave. We all know Zion's leaving, so I don't know what the Pelicans are holding him for. What are you saving him for when his interest is to leave you anyway? You better use him while you still got him. I think that's just common sense. So I'd be curious to know if he's going to play in that game. Um, because he can't keep doing 360s and dunking underneath his leg and all this other stuff, essentially telling all the fans that he wants to play, and then have the organization in the way of that. Like, how as an organization do you explain that to the Pelican fans? And they see this dude, the franchise, going crazy. If he's that hurt, how the hell is he doing all of this? If he ain't ready to bang on the floor, how's he ready to win a dunk contest? So they're gonna have to explain that to me. As a fan, I would want an explanation for that. But anyway, so that's what it is, man. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say the Pelicans are gonna win this game on the road in the Crow, also known as Staples Center, because the Clippers showed me no reason to believe that they're gonna have any success against a team like this. Too athletic, too long, too defensive, too capable of hitting the three. Paul George had a fantastic game against the Timberwolves, and it didn't make a difference. And I don't think it's going to make a difference here if B.I. and C.J. play the way they did tonight. Granted, the Spurs are not nearly as talented as the Clippers, so gauging how the Pels did against the Spurs probably isn't a good idea. But I'm telling you, I know a team that gets demoralized. I know when a team has had its soul snatched up out of their skin, and that's exactly what the Timberwolves did to the Clippers. All the Pelicans need to do is sense that fear and attack it, because they're vulnerable right now. You know, that whole Ty Lue, greatest coach in the league thing, I have to walk that all the way back after that last play-in game. You can't leave Reggie Jackson out there to fail like that. You can't. You got to stop the bleeding. You got to put that ball in Paul George's hands, as that dude said in his video. You know, and you just gotta take it, make the adjustment in the game that you need to make to give yourself the advantage. And I just felt like he didn't do that. Patrick Beverley was eating. It was a situation where you cannot let a player who's that fired up had that type of motivational opportunity against a player where he'd have success against all game long. A player who you probably seen him have success against in practice last year. It's just, no, that Norman Powell should have been on the floor more so last night. And I think he's going to be very important in that game against the Pelicans. And you look at a guy like CJ, those are teammates. Those are obviously, even though they didn't play very long with one another, they started the season on the same team with one another. That should be an interesting matchup. Obviously, you're looking at a guy like Robert Covington. He, too, is going to be extremely important in this game. His defensive prowess is going to have to offset some of that stuff that you're going to see from the Herb Joneses and those guys and the Hayes. You're going to need him to play well. And that's what I'm going to be looking at. It's all about who Ty Lue decides to play down the stretch of this game. You know, it's tough because you know your vets can hit big shots. You know Marcus Morris can hit big shots. But does he give you the best opportunity to defend against a Brandon Ingram? You know what I mean? And those are going to be the questions. Who do you play? And I'm a realist, man. I'm telling you, this Lakers season has taught me a lot. I don't believe in rah-rah stuff as it pertains to, oh, well, this storyline makes sense, so let's roll with that. Or, oh, this guy used to be so good for so long, I just know he's going to win. Even though it's only like 3 guys over there who can play, they're going to win because they're such stars. No, that mentality, that's been snuffed out of me by the reality of the Lakers situation. This is the truth. If you have more players who can do more things and attack you from more different angles on the floor than the other team, chances are you're going to win. If you have bigger size players, if you have more effective players, stronger players, players that are going to outsmart the other players on the other team, you're going to probably win. This is the truth. That's why I look at a situation like Boston Celtics versus the Nets, and I think Boston's going to win. I look at a situation where I say, some of these other matchups, I look at Philly, Toronto, for example. I think Toronto's going to win because a lot of that stuff, if you're picking those other teams, you're looking at fairy tale stuff. You're looking at mantra stuff. You're saying, oh, it's the history says this. But I think the bodies, the actual physical bodies, science tells you that those teams are probably going to be outmatched by what it is that they're going to see based on speed, based on efficiency, based on more weapons. And I maybe that holds true, maybe it doesn't. But as I said, I think that superstar stuff, The jury's out on it. As you can see, the Clippers are superstar based. One of them dudes ain't played in a year. The other one just got back from injury. I look at the Pelicans and I say they don't have that problem. They got all their requisite amount of talent on the floor, except for Zion Williamson, who we all know wants to be out there. So at this point, I think the Pelicans have more of their team on the floor. I think they have the younger, faster team. And it's going to be about whether or not those vets can play faster than they did against the Timberwolves, or they're going to get beat at home to the Pelicans. That's what I think is going to happen, man. So I appreciate you guys for rocking with me. I'm going to try to give you a video on all these different things, these different playoff series and all that. And it's going to be rocking here in LA. We're going to see a heck of a game there. So that's what I got. BDF 44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.